And then he called the doctor and said, this is $200. There's another one out there. He said, $200. I don't think. Thanks, Bob.
Really?
She made $200.
68 degrees.
Get down to 68. It's getting down to 57 today, tomorrow. But the high of 85.
I feel sorry for you.
Thanks. Okay, you want to, I don't have the, let me get on my other one and get the,
All call to order, roll call.
okay.
Moment of silence, pledge of allegiance.
Is it roll call or is it the pledge first?
No, call to order, then roll call.
Okay, I'm calling the meeting to order. And can I have a roll call at 7 a.m.?
Yes, hold on. Jerry Baffa,
Present.
Dr. Brown,
Present.
Mike Clark. Mike Clark,
He knows to be here.
Linda Dunn.
Present.
Okay, Mike Clark is present. Linda Dunn's present. Dr. Dershowitz.
I saw him here.
I admitted
You're
him.
muted. You're muted, Bob.
How's that?
Star 6.
Is that okay?
Yep.
You can hear me?
Yes, Doc. We hear you.
So you saw Mike here?
Yes.
So we have a quorum, Mr. Chairman, but we'd just like to make sure we captured everybody on the call. Councilman Gardner,
Present.
Dave Westland,
Present.
Tricia Abbott,
Present.
Wendy Miss,
Present.
Mark Hyduk, Fire Chief Hyduk.
I don't know that he's in yet.
Okay. And then we have myself, Nancy Nadrotowski, Lieutenant Damon Johnston. We have Jeff Collins, Mr. Faber.
Present.
And Mr. DeFord. Tristan.
Present.
Okay, is there anybody we're missing?
Okay. Nancy, where is the, I have the board packet, but there it is. Never mind. We have a moment of silence. Then we'll stand for the pledge behind Steve's picture. There's a flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the United States
Of the United States of America
America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and
With
justice for
liberty
all.
and justice for all.
Okay. Is there, before I read this whole thing, is there any member of the public present that wants to speak?
Hi, I'm Paul Rotatori. Sorry, it says MEF. I'm on MEF, and sometimes things get mixed up. I'm Paul Rotatori. This doesn't have anything to do with MEF.
Hey, Paul, could you spell your last name for the record, please?
Sure, it's ROTATORI.
Thank you.
Live on Cray.
Okay.
And I had a good conversation with Chief Shekel this week about.
Read this first. Stop.
What
I
was
have
that?
to read this to you first. We were just
Oh,
asking.
okay. Sorry, I thought that was a,
No, yeah, there is. I just got to read this to you first. So this will be the public comment section of our meeting. Number one, open to the public, 2-minute maximum per person, or 5 minutes for a group spokesperson. Please keep comments civil and constructive to the public policy issues. The chair at his sole discretion may recognize individuals wishing to speak on topics at any time and may end the open to the public session. All speakers will be timed by the chair, or we're going to make it the sergeant, the chief at arms. This portion of the meeting will not exceed 10 minutes. Okay, now you can talk.
all right, thanks. Yeah, so I had a good conversation with Chief Shekel this week about an interesting article I read about a program in Denver where they were responding to 911 calls in a tag team of individuals. There was a medical person and some kind of clinician, and there wasn't any police being sent out. And these were non-emergency calls, you know, homelessness, just maybe some domestic issues, just, you know, things, just people just needed help. I mean, you get all these kind of calls all the time, right? Where police just don't have much they could do, much they could help. People just need some other kind of assistance. And what really struck me is, I know this is a large, you know, metro area, but what really struck me is out of 748 of the calls, police didn't have to be called in for extra assistance, which I was kind of shocked at. I assume, you know, I don't know, 25% of them, you'd get there and the situation would escalate or something like that, and that didn't happen. So that got me thinking, like, what is there something like that we could do in Munster or in Lake County? I know we're not Denver, right? We're not that kind of a size. And Chief, you know, and I talked about the kind of limitations of that. But I just thought, you know, I just wanted to get it out there that I would love for the town to think about some kind of short-term things that we could do that could help replicate something like that, so that it's better for everybody. You know, people get the right kind of help they need in some kind of emergency, and then, you know, police get to do police work, right? They could focus their efforts and time on things that they could actually control, and it just, you know, would help, I think, probably avoid situations escalating out of control when, you know, the right people aren't being sent at the right time. And I'm not saying that there's a problem we need to fix in Munster. It's just it's more of an avoidance and, you know, getting the right people at the right time. So,
Okay.
So yeah, short term, I don't know if there's things that the town can do, but long term, you know, maybe this is more for Mr. Gardner. You know, what can we be doing with Lake County to think about, you know, how they dispatch calls? Is there some kind of team that could be put in place that is sent to these types of calls?
Okay, so we get started now. We're going to be rambling for 10 hours on this. We got to get it organized.
That was it.
No, I guess I just want to make sure that Mr. Rowe totally had that. That was your, you didn't have anything else to add, Paul?
No, that's, I don't have any questions. That was it.
Okay.
So what I was going to say was that we have to get it organized into sections and then bring it back at another meeting, but to just, you know, sort of catching us off guard. So we can go back, I'll go back in with Steve and see what we can bring out of numbers, actually, because the numbers are going to be what does it. It's going to be dollars and cents. And like you said, it probably belongs at Lake County, and we don't have much input into Lake County. You should really go to the Lake County Board. That's where their 911, they fund it. You know, we give money and then we lose track of it. It's not really us. So the actual numbers in Munster, you know, Steve will come up with and that. So we'll get back with it when we're organized with a response for it. But in the meantime, I would urge you to go to the Lake County council meetings, because that's where the funding is. That's where you pay taxes to. You know, Lake County gets big income tax from us for running Lake County. So I would bring it up there.
Dr. Brown, Mr. Westland has his hand raised.
Yes.
Dr. Brown, you're right. The inquiry by Mr. Redatori is really a coordinated effort with kind of how emergency services are dispatched. And as you correctly pointed out, that's done through the E911 Commission, which, I know Chief Shekel is really familiar with, and Nicole Bennett represents that E911 Commission. So what I was going to suggest is if the chief or Mr. Gardner or yourself, if you wanted to make inquiry with her, I'll certainly pass it along, and that this topic was raised, and I really think it's an agenda item for the 911 Commission, which meets either monthly or every other month, and I'd be happy to pass it along to her. And I know you, Chief, and Chuck know how to get a hold of her, so that I'll give her the heads up, and it can be raised there.
Okay, that'd be great.
Just for our attorney, we meet quarterly now, but I do believe we have a meeting coming up in March.
Okay.
My only question I would ask the chief is, in your conversations with Mr. Rotatori, is it clearly explained? Again, do you have any other questions for him before we start looking a little bit more in depth with what was presented this morning, Chief?
No, just so the board's aware, currently we do get from time to time dispatches for mental patients as they're categorized in our calls for service. However, if they're a danger to themselves or anybody else, we do what's called the emergency detention order, or EDO, and an ambulance is summoned. The officer rides with the ambulance to the hospital where they do get a professional evaluation. I agree with Mr. Redatori that, it would be nice to leave that to the professionals, and seeing as it's not a police matter sometimes, but as you know, people want someone, they dial 911, and then that usually means either police or fire department end up trying to fashion out the best response possible. If the county was receptive to this type of program, which we don't know yet, I would support it in that fashion.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you for the comments.
Okay, I'll add to that I'm on the Northwest Regional SWAT team, and I'd say this is the SWAT team, not just the police force, and they're called out by the local police force that needs help. And half our calls are like a suicide with a gun. So those are taken care of at an extremely high level that nobody riding along is going to walk in on. So that's the most destructive ones, and they're handled straight out, and we don't do anything but hand them off, disarm them, and hand them off to the ambulance service that's there. So okay, we can move on then.
Thank you very much. Paul, thanks for your comments.
Consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept in a second, and then we can talk about it?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Jerry and Linda, is there any questions?
Okay.
Actually, the $3,500 charge for furniture for the new chief. Is that, did I read that right? How bad was the office?
Is that is Fire Chief Hyduk on the line?
I'm not aware of him on the line.
Okay.
Anybody else from the fire department here? Nope.
Mike, what we can do is let me find out, let me talk with the fire chief and review that charge, and we'll get back to you, Mike, on that one.
Fantastic.
When I see Pulse Technology, there's also, I think that could be some technology, computer and switchovers and things like that too. But let me find out, and I will get back with the board on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, are you ready for a roll call vote?
Yeah, is there anybody else have anything to say? No. Okay, yes. Take a roll call.
Okay, Mr. Baffa,
Aye.
Dr. Brown,
Aye.
Mike Clark,
Aye.
Linda Dunn,
Aye.
Dr. Dershowitz,
Aye.
5-0, passes.
Okay, the next thing, Superior Monthly Report, Linda?
I went over the January report with Jerry, and we had a few questions, fewer than most months. So I was in contact with Tristan, who supplied answers to my questions, and basically it was a very good month as far as response time and just activity in the town. The average response time was under 3 minutes, 2 minutes and 38 seconds. And to patient side under 4 minutes. So it was a good month. I don't have much else to say. There were very few issues this month. So, and there was an explanation given for the few issues that I raised. So when the time is, I don't remember if the time is now or if it's later on, that I would move to accept their report.
Yeah, I guess. I just had a question for anybody there from Superior. Are you having any problems in Munster with the snow? We're still okay.
Dr. Brown, I have not heard of any problems with the snow, but if I do hear of anything, I'll definitely let you guys know.
Okay, so there's not gonna be a bunch of slow times come up next month from this week?
No, not to my knowledge. I mean, of course, I wouldn't be surprised if we had to take it slower on Tuesday just due to the snow during the day, but there hasn't been anything glaring that I know about.
Okay. Okay, then do we need a second to Linda's motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Do we need a roll call, Steve? I guess.
Okay. Jerry Baffa.
I do have a question for Superior though.
Okay.
Where does each ambulance get staged? I know
Jeff,
there's ones at your base.
But so the ambulances are kept at a station on Ridge by the McDonald's over there, and the ERV, Tristan, it's close to Community Hospital, correct?
Yeah, it's off of Southwood and Franklin, kind of over by the school there.
And so that's where that vehicle responds from initially.
So both ambulances are now kept on the northwest side?
They've always been, well, they've been there ever since we moved out of the other station.
Yeah, but we complained about it back then.
The response times are good. We can't have people sitting in the ambulances for 24 hours. So they're housed in a station and respond from there. And the ERV is posted out and available because they're running 12-hour shifts.
Who's running 12-hour shift? Who's the ERV?
The ERV is running 12-hour shifts. So we're able to keep that vehicle out in the community and they can stay in the vehicle for the 12 hours. The ambulance crews are on 24-hour shifts. So they're housed at a station.
Got it. So we don't have a problem with the tracks now, except that when you go if there's a train blocking the upstairs, you're coming out of the downstairs way to the west, right?
Tristan, I believe so.
That would be correct. However, we have not encountered any train issues that I know of.
So, yeah, until we do. So we're a proactive committee. So is there any way to put the chase car, I think is what you're talking about, the URV. So can you put that south of the tracks for that whole sector of the town?
So we can look again, but again, the 75+% of the calls that come into Munster come into the north side of the town. So you're ultimately maybe delaying service where the most of the calls occur in the town. So we can put the vehicle there, but there'll be a delay because now that vehicle going to most of the calls is having to go all the way north.
Well, for those of us that live south of the tracks, we're the 25% that gets ignored and will always be late if you're all north of the tracks. Not necessarily late, but less than we could have been had we lived next to McDonald's, correct?
I think we put the resources in the town where they're needed for the bulk of the people in the town.
I understand that, but you're not making it fair to those that live on one side of the town or the other. You're fair for your contract, and you can do that, but you're not making it fair to the people who have a heart attack and lose oxygen and are being pumped on south of the tracks. If there's a train, the ambulance has to go, I mean, the chase car, just the chase car, let alone the ambulance, have to go to the south side of town, go to the bridge, if there's a train, go all the way out on Calumet, come all the way back to say the towns of White Oak, the subdivisions of White Oak Estates and all those in there. And they may make it under the 6 minutes, but I'd rather be somebody who's being pumped on in 2 minutes than somebody who's pumped on in 6 minutes.
So Dr. Brown, I would throw out there just, especially with the recent construction, that's not entirely true because we have 45th Street now that we're able to get under the tracks to the south side of town.
Right, I said
I'm
that.
not saying that that's going to be a perfect solution, but it is something that we do have, you know, at our convenience now.
What I just said was, when you come out of that tunnel, you're all the way on the west side by Calumet Avenue.
Right.
Then you come back all the way to the east side where those other where the other subdivisions are. That's where the president of the town council lives. That's where a lot of people live. And I don't think that we should be getting always secondary service. Now, it may meet the contract. I'm not arguing that. I'm not arguing you're staying within your times. I'm not arguing that you're not doing a great job. I'm arguing that we never get immediate service for somebody that's going to have a cardiac arrest. And 75% is good to cover, but there's the other 25%. And that's what I'm arguing. So just think about it and think if there isn't a way to make it so it's equitable, even if it's every fourth day or every third day, if you want to make it, if you want to go by numbers of equal coverage, but you put both ambulances up on the north that have to get south, and say somebody had a cardiac arrest on Tuesday, you never would have made it. Never would have made it. So, and the way that the tunnel is, it's good. So we're not locked north and south anymore, but you're throwing everybody out by that other fire station or even north of that. And then they have to get south. There's no fast way across. So it doesn't divide the town, but that's just my comment. Go on.
Dr. Brown,
Yeah.
Can I throw out maybe, because when you have a crew and they already have an established station by McDonald's, I mean, realistically, that makes sense that they're operating out of there. Maybe the ERV a couple days a week could position itself in White Oak Park, which is south of the tracks.
That's what I was asking.
Maybe that's a compromise that isn't going to really impact their operations that much.
No, because what I had said at that time, back when we were afraid that town was going to be cut in half during this period of time when you had the fly, whatever it was called for the trains and that we'd be cut in half. We had said, why don't you put an ambulance or put the chase car in the park at White Oak? Because the train, we're talking about on a bad situation where the train is across the tracks too. That's not many percentage of the time. But if you're sitting in White Oak, that means you can go north without a problem because there's no train. You can just right on right onto White Oak and head north. You know, it doesn't, it makes more sense to cover the town. I mean, when we did it, when we first negotiated this contract, we were arguing we didn't want to have a station. We didn't want them there. Then you went to this, you know, your time element, and we sympathize with that. But for the person who's laying there dead or near dead, he's not sympathizing with you. So I got to think of them too. So that's what I'm saying. So, you know, we're sitting here talking about getting psychologists on the scene and stuff like that. That can wait. But we're talking about pumping and keeping somebody alive long enough. And we're not talking about anybody's going to be real happy when nobody's pumping on their relative or whatever, because they're coming from the north side so these guys can sleep in a bed. And that they're not going to accept it. I accepted it very little, because it took a half an hour to get from Munster Community Hospital 2 blocks over to my father's house when he died. So I'm not sympathetic to it. I'm sorry. That's just my personal opinion. Anybody else have anything to say? Then we'll go with the vote. Steve, you want to take the vote?
You ready? We have a motion and a second to accept the ambulance report as presented. Jerry Baffa, how do you vote?
Aye.
Dr. Brown?
Aye.
Mike Clark?
Aye.
Linda Dunn?
Aye.
Dr. Dershowitz?
Aye.
Okay, report accepted.
Okay, fire chief. Oh, there's no fire chief. So there's no fireman yet? Nope. Okay. Police chief, Steve?
Okay, thank you. Couple things coming up that are pretty significant to the police department. And in a second, I'll have Lieutenant Johnston, who's our accreditation manager, speak to that. March 8th and 9th, we have our on-site, where this is the actual physical show up, where the assessors come in and go through the department. It's a big deal to the police department. And with that, Lieutenant Johnston's been working hard setting up the calendar for the 2-day on-site assessment. So Lieutenant Johnston, can you take it from here?
Sure. As Chief mentioned, this is our year usually for our on-site where they physically come here, but this year, obviously, it's going to have to be virtual due to COVID-19 and all that business. So we'll be conducting our virtual on-site March 8th and 9th, and we'll be conducting interviews over the phone. And at this point, they've already looked at all of our proofs of compliance and our policies. They've been doing that for this is the 4th year of that. So at this point, they're trying to get to know us as a police agency. It's kind of hard to do that on paper, right? And just talking to me on phone interviews. So at this point, they're going to be talking to people in our community and people on our staff. So that way they can get a better idea of what we do as a police department and how we interact with the community and other police departments. So I will be contacting some of you to be part of these interviews on those 2 days. And then it culminates in the last day with a public call-in portion, as well as an exit interview for staff. So so far so good with our on-site. So we've had 4 good years of compliance with all of our policies and procedures. And I anticipate some very good interviews and just keep moving forward with what we're doing. So this is a good way for our police department to make improvements and to identify things that we need to work on or things that we're doing great and need to continue doing. So this is a continuing process. And I'm open for any questions. If anybody has any questions about what's going to occur.
Damon,
Yes.
also as a benefit of being accredited, maybe you can speak to, with the new grant funding coming out and requirements, how we were already qualified right out of the blocks.
Sure. We've been accredited through accreditation since 2004, I believe. So we've been doing this for a long time. There's new regulations in the federal government. In order to receive grant funding, you have to comply with certain policies and procedures within your police departments. And there's a couple ways you can be certified to receive the funding now. One of which is to be CALIA certified. The other is through the state of Indiana. So what they do is they look at your policies that concern use of force. Obviously, right now that's a pretty hot topic and it's an important topic that needs to be addressed. But we've always been in compliance with these requirements that the federal government is giving for these grants. So that was never an issue. All we do is give the person at CALIA who's certifying access to our policies. They looked at it real quick and they certified us right off the bat. So that's one of the great benefits of being CALIA accredited, is that when things like this do come up, we are already in compliance with these new regulations because they are the best practices in law enforcement. We've been doing it since the beginning. So I'd like to say thank you to all the staff and to the officers who work hard and making sure all this stuff is done, so that we can maintain this accreditation and move forward with these certifications.
Thank you, Damon. Are there any questions for Lieutenant Johnston? Okay, hearing none. I just wanted to broach the topic of our crime stats. As you know, it's been a tumultuous year, 2020, and 2021 has started out kind of robustly as far as crime goes. I'm happy to report, however, with the exception of the problems we're having with mostly Illinois right now, our stats are at the lowest in decades, which is a good thing. We finished off last year, our stats were significantly lower than 2019, believe it or not. Even with all the unrest going around, the officers did a great job protecting this town. As you know, we had mobs of people looting all around us. However, they never did hit Munster. I think that's a testament to the officers out on the street, taking their job seriously and doing what they can to put up a wall around our town. But I'm glad to report that for the most part, our stats were heading south still in spite of all that. Going into 2019, as you read in the Times or saw on various news outlets, it's been a difficult year for law enforcement. We have, I think Chicago's carjackings were up 400 and some %. We did get a residual spillover here into Indiana. We currently have patrols where we all meet in one location, from state police to the sheriff's department to all the local agencies, and we go out and we kind of wolf pack an area that's having problems. We make numerous arrests. A lot of them are felons with firearms out of Chicago. A lot of them are juveniles. Juveniles are put up to these tasks because the criminal justice system tends to go light on juveniles, even serious carjackings. And they kind of found a loophole in which to operate. I'm happy to report that, and I'll chalk it up to the weather, It's been rather peaceful, even though we had to endure these storms and take more accident reports. It seems to keep people who are predisposed to commit crimes at bay a little bit. But I will promise you that we are doing everything, especially within our corridor, Calumet, to prevent people from coming in and committing carjackings. I think you'll notice on Calumet, especially when you enter into town, you're always going to run into one or two officers. Thankfully, 11 years ago, we were the first agency in Northwest Indiana to implement our license plate recognition. And the officers are constantly monitoring that as cars get off the expressway. This gives them a tremendous leg up, so they know which cars to stop if they're coming in to do something nefarious. The officers are usually able to intercept them before they can even scope a place out. And as you know or don't know, a lot of these cars are stolen out of city or other communities. Then they're used to transport people down here to carjack another car. And then they usually escape via the expressway back to Chicago. By us interrupting that and intercepting them as they get off the expressway, it does result in a lot of pursuits. However, we're really running them out of town before they can commit a crime. So that's been kind of our rhythm, you know, our battle rhythm, if you will, and how we've been successful in addressing it and keeping our residents safe so far. But we can't put our guard down for a second right now. We're also,
Chief,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Chief, is that only monitored in the police vehicles, or is it monitored in the station also?
It can be monitored in station also, but usually it's right inside the police vehicle because they're sitting there. And when a stolen auto comes into town, that's put into IDAX NCIC and the database, it automatically sounds an alarm in the car, and the officer is able to then intercept that vehicle or attempt to intercept it. One of the things we've noticed, the sheriff has been on WJOB radio saying the same thing that we notice in Indiana. Illinois, for litigious reasons, have most agencies in Illinois, except the Illinois State Police, have adopted a zero pursuit policy. So when we get criminals from Illinois, they're under the false assumption that all they have to do is speed up and the officer will terminate the pursuit. You know, collectively, we have a very strict pursuit policy because we are accredited through CALEA. However, we chase them down and apprehend the suspects. And then they face Indiana law. And we hold people for bonds. Illinois, they basically are taken to jail. They sign a recognizance bond, promising to appear in court in a future date, and they let them walk right outside the building. Quite frankly, 32 years of law enforcement, it's a joke. And we've noticed that here when we apprehend people, felons, with firearms, which by the way, in Illinois is supposed to be a mandatory 5 years. The first thing they ask us is, do I get an I-bond? Then we say, no, you're going to the Lake County Jail. You're going to be held to appear before a judge for a bond hearing. And they're shocked that they have to go through this whole process and post a cash bond before being released. You know, we've been in discussions with sheriff's department and the county courts. And we want to make sure that we don't lighten up on that. That's our only saving grace in Northwest Indiana. Because unfortunately, Illinois has become a joke, for lack of a better word, when it comes to being tough on crime. And I think their stats are bearing that out. If you just look at a random weekend in Chicago and what's going on up there. So that's kind of the rhythm we're in right now. Again, this wouldn't be possible if we didn't have a bunch of dedicated officers literally risking their lives every day out there just to, keep a nice canopy of protection over our citizens here.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, so then we move on, I guess, to old business. Any old business? Okay, any new business? We have that one odd thing we'll look into. Any comments from the board? Linda?
Mike Clark has one. I was just wondering, is the new fire chief, is he in? Is he sworn in? Is he settled? Did he start? And is he on the communications for this meeting? Or do we know where he is?
Did you send him is he on the list? He was before. He was there as the assistant chief.
Yeah, he's on the email list.
Okay.
Mike, he was sworn in on the February 1st town council meeting. Wendy swore him in. We did have a presentation that night on February 1st. He was on the communication for this meeting here, and we're efforting to try to get in touch with him at this time. So,
thank you.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else? Dr. Dershowitz?
Yeah, is that guy that was public? Is he still on the line?
yes, he is.
Yes.
Jerry.
Yeah, my question is, when they showed up at, like they said, mental health or something like that, did any of them turn violent? Do they have any statistics showing that, that the health professional his life was in jeopardy because of the situation was not properly screened to get the correct person there?
Yeah, that was the surprising thing. I mean, this is just a pilot in Denver, but out of 748 cases, none of them escalated where they needed to call an officer, which is pretty shocking.
That's really shocking.
Wonder if that's a true stat.
I mean,
I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Our ambulance service gets calls for people that fall out of chairs and goes without, they are calls like that. There's all kind of calls that never reach. They go to 911, I guess, and they go straight to the ambulance service. And then they have a policy for going out to homes most of the time for no charge and just helping somebody get their loved one back into a chair or something like that when they're stranded on the floor. So we cover a lot of stuff that doesn't involve police and that. Okay.
I was actually, in regards to data, I was wondering if that kind of thing was accessible easily, like in terms, do you kind of categorize calls as to how frequently police really aren't needed? I don't know if that's something that you.
And again, Lake County decides who's called. They don't buzz out police on every 911 call. I have no idea. I don't think anybody in the room, well, maybe Steve does, but other than that, it comes out of you should really get to that meeting and ask those questions of the Lake County Board. They're the ones that have that data, or that, not the Lake County Board, but the whatever that committee is.
The 911 committee, right, Doc?
The 911 commission, yes.
Yes. And I think that's important for us as a town to kind of review also. So we'll take Mr. Westland's advice, and I'll work with Chief Shekel and try to get some detailed information and maybe ask some questions. And my own final comment really is to the Chief of Police and to the Chief Police staff. Thank you for going through the accreditation for the last 11 years. We know it's a little bit more work and backtracking and getting policies put together and everything else, but it certainly shows the professionalism of the police department. And I appreciate your efforts on an ongoing basis, but certainly the year of accreditation, going through all the extra work for that, for the really to keep things moving as professional as we can in the town. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman.
Yeah, I have 2 sessions with them next month. So I don't have any other questions. Linda, did you have any, or Dr. Dershowitz?
No.
I did not.
Or, so everybody's talked. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn then?
So
I'll
Lauren,
motion to adjourn.
I second.
Lauren, did you say that our meeting in March is regular third
Should be,
Thursday at 7? Okay,
yeah, unless,
All right.
The 18th.
okay.
So we said.
yeah, so it'll be same 7 o'clock. Fine. Third week. Okay, so I have a motion. Have a second?
I'll second.
Oh, do we have to take a roll call? That just goes, right?
Not for adjournment.
Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, we're adjourned.
Have a good
Be
day.
safe, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.